Kia ora tātou, ko Amber McEwen-Aho. As George said, I'm the CEO of REANNZ. Slightly intimidated standing here this morning after that amazing speech by Suzanne. I think I'm going to take it down a level though to what was underlying Suzanne's speech was infrastructure. She talked a lot about it. Well, that's what REANNZ is about. So I'm going to talk you through three things over the next sort of 15, 20 minutes. The first is what we've been up to for the last 6 months. You all know NESI services and people and capability was integrated into REANNZ at the 1st of July. We've been very, very busy, but I know we've been very quiet. So I'll give you a bit of an update on what we've been doing. I'll walk you through our strategy that we've just had signed off before Christmas. This is a 5-year plan, so you know what you can expect from us over the years ahead. And then I'll get into what you can expect to see from us over the next 3 to 6 months. But the key point for me out of today is I see this as starting a new conversation with the sector. We're a broader entity, we're different than we were as two individual entities. So I'm hoping that after this you come and reach out to the REANNZ team and start to talk about what you actually want from us. We have a direction, but we need you to really help fill in the details for us. The key point really is we are stronger than ever. We've come together, and I really want to start with a few thank yous. First of all, the REANNZ and the NESI teams who came together, they have been single-mindedly focused on the customer and delivering throughout the integration. We all know how unsettling these changes can be, and I just want to call out the team, many of whom are here today, to thank you for just staying focused on the end customer throughout the process. I want to acknowledge our customers, particularly the NESI collaborators, University of Auckland, Earth Sciences, Manaaki Whenua, I see you up there, Chris, and Otago, Wallace, for going on the journey with us. As Suzanne said, there's bumps in the road, and there were a few times that we needed to sort of call on the patience of our customers and collaborators. And of course, MBIE, who have supported us through this process and have recently confirmed a 5-year funding platform for us. So we are very stable in terms of our funding going forward, which is a privileged position to be in at the moment, and we're well aware of the responsibility that brings on us to create impact for the sector. Firstly, oh yes, it has come. I just want to talk through the investment we've been doing behind the scenes to strengthen our HPC offering. As some of you will be aware, the new Weka file system is one of the more significant technical changes in the new platform. And post-migration, it really became clear to us that we didn't have enough NVMe cache for all the workloads. So some workloads were intermittently running into slowdowns as a result. And I'm sure some of you have experienced some of that using the platform over the last 3 to 6 months. But to resolve this, we've invested about $500,000 in expanding the top fastest tier storage in Mahuika. And that capacity is delivered and in production. That went in production last month. So hopefully those issues have resolved. If they haven't, please don't hesitate to reach out. I don't want anyone suffering in silence. We're here to support and try and iron out any issues that may or may not appear. We've also been busy relocating the legacy Mahuika equipment from Earth Sciences' Greta Point location and have reconfigured some of that hardware for use as dev test equipment. And we plan to make some of that capacity available to those users of the Research Developer Cloud in the coming months. So if you're interested in that, please, again, just reach out to the team. And we're also planning to add some additional GPU capability. The REANNZ board has signed off an investment, and we'll be looking at going to market and implementing that over the next sort of 3 to 6 months. So if you're interested in GPUs, keep an eye on this space. For those of you who are interested in details, I've put the slide, Blair has put the slide together for me. I'm not going to attempt to speak to this slide because those of you who know me know this detail is way above my capacity for techno speak. But the key point really is our upgraded HPC is designed to be faster and more powerful than its predecessor. It is also scalable, and this is really, really key for me. Remember, at its core, Mahawika is a research tool, so it's flexible, it's scalable, it's designed to morph as your needs morph over time. So that has been core to the DNA of the team who designed and built Mahawika. So we are preparing roadmaps and we'll be looking at investing in Mahawika further over the years ahead. And in addition, we are building up our support centrally for artificial intelligence, including through a rich array of GPUs, software tools, and people as well. So we're expanding in that area, again, in response to your demands of us. So what's next? This next section, I'm just going to walk you through our 5-year strategy. It's by nature is high level, and as I said earlier, this is a framework for a conversation, and we're really looking at asking you to work with us to fill in the gaps. So this strategy was developed with the sector. We had a strategic advisory board who inputted into it, and it really talked to REANNZ about, well, they've asked REANNZ to be 3 things. One is the preferred eResearch infrastructure partner. Now, I'm well aware we can't just say we're the preferred one and say that's it. We have to earn that, right? So we have a lot of work to do for you to see us as your preferred. We're in a competitive market, we know this, and we are here to earn your trust and your support over the years ahead. We need to leverage the collective strength and purchasing power of the sector. We all know none of us have enough money, enough people to do what we want, right? So it makes sense to work together. We're the central platform to support you to do that. So we are spending a lot of time consolidating demand and reacting by providing infrastructure at scale. And some of that is in response to sovereign use cases, and some of that is in response to access to technology that may or may not be in country. And the final point is the sector wants us to be an infrastructure innovation hub. We all like playing, and we need to play with the latest and greatest technology. We need to break things, we need to experiment, and that gets harder and harder inside the lockdown IT environments of many organisations that we're working within. So REANNZ will be looking at standing up trusted research environments and similar to enable you to experiment and play and break things as you push the boundaries of your research further and further. I'm going to go through each of these points individually and just talk you through a bit more detail about what's the thinking that's underpinning them. So the first, preferred partner for eResearch. This starts with broadening the access to our services. One of the criticisms we've had historically is it's quite hard to get to use REANNZ if you're not a big institution or a well-funded research program. So how can we deliver equitable access to everybody who might need to use us? The first comes about lowering the bar to access. It's about a pricing model. And this is, it can sound a bit dry, I know this, and I've got Graham in the back telling me it's definitely not dry, but this is making sure we have a flexible range of pricing options to suit the needs of Auckland University, but also to sort the needs of Te Huku media as well. So we're working on that, and we'll have that available April, May. We'll be going out to the sector with that. The other piece, which is really implicit in our national mandate, is delivering at scale. We are here to consolidate your demand and broker access to key infrastructures. We will also build and run key infrastructures where there is a strong use case. That might be sovereign, that might be cost effectiveness, but we will look at providing access to infrastructures at scale, whether or not we actually run them. And we'll look at expanding our service catalogue. We hear from a lot of you that you need access to this thing and someone else wants access to that thing. And it's very hard for one organisation to run all of the variants of infrastructure that you might need as researchers. So what we'll be doing is we'll be leveraging the power of the global research and education networks with our federated identity layer to be able to give you distributed access to infrastructure, whether that's national or international. We heard a lot through the strategy work that people love working with the REANNZ teams, but the service is inconsistent. Sometimes it can be a long wait to get access to infrastructure. Sometimes you get a lot of somebody's time, sometimes you don't get much of somebody's time. And what we're here to do today is really just say that we're aware of that, and we're doing a lot of work in formalising our service definitions and our service models. So when you come and use REANNZ, you know exactly what you'll be getting. And the second is, or the last rather, is defining the future. We need to know from you what infrastructures you need 12, 24, 36 months out, and we're building a roadmap to work out how we will deliver those for you. Wallace, who's helpfully wearing a yellow t-shirt, for those of you who know Wallace Chase, he's on secondment to REANNZ from Otago, so Stephen has very kindly lent him to us, and he will be building out a tech roadmap. So go and see him and talk to him about what your wildest dreams are, and his job is making them happen. So no pressure there, Wallace. The second pillar is about leveraging the strength of the collective. We've touched on this already. We're much better together than we are apart. When you think about a competitive advantage for an institution, often that is in the people and the methodologies. It's not always in the underlying infrastructure. So where people don't compete, this is the sweet spot for REANNZ as a central infrastructure provider. So the first thing we will be continuing to do is enabling the research community. One of the great areas that came across into REANNZ was the capability building function, the communities of practice, the training. That work will continue, and the big challenge that we've got at the moment, and this is George's KPI, is how we roll that out at scale, how we do that in a way that reaches the entire sector without us having to incrementally scale up our people. So we've got a lot of thinking to do in that area, but it's a key focus. And underpinning that, of course, is common tools and frameworks. How can we create frameworks, playbooks, reference architectures, and things like that that just help you roll out and kick off your research program, is what I'm really trying to say, quickly, but also collaborate nationally and internationally by sharing a similar language with your peers. We've talked about the facilitating wider range of infrastructure, and that's through federation. And that's where sovereignty comes in for us as well, because we'll federate access to overseas infrastructures, but again, we'll work to build use cases for national infrastructures where there's a strong sovereign argument. And the last one is about money. It's where it makes sense to negotiate a sector-wide deal to reduce the costs. I'm thinking of the API example there, Suzanne. We will look to do that on behalf of the sector. Third one is the Infrastructure Innovation Hub, and this is really creating an area for you to play and to break things. And we'll look at we're already in discussions to get access to a broader range of cutting capability like quantum chips and well, mainly quantum really, isn't it, and AI capability to really help you drive the innovation and adoption of these new technologies. But we'll also provide resource and people to help you leverage them as well, just to lower that barrier to entry there as well. And the key point is we will also, it's not just about REANNZ, it's about the global research and education community. So I was fortunate enough to be in Chile last week, meeting with the CEOs from around the Global Research and Education Network, and we're talking very actively about how we can share the disparate expertise that exists across our global network and make it available locally. So we are actively looking at how we can work together to do that. So in summary, we're a sector connector and enabler. And we've really tried to find some more jazzy words, but actually let's call it what it is. Let's not try and pretend that we're something we're not. And we're here to connect you to yourselves, to each other rather, to data, to infrastructure nationally or internationally. And we're also here to give you the skills and support you and enable you to use those infrastructures when needed. So what we do is we foster and support innovation. We make it easy. Our service wrap is absolutely key. We scale and optimise services, And a new area that's coming in, that's come through the strategy, is sector leadership and advocacy. And this is something we talked a lot about with the sector, particularly the CIOs, through the strategy development. And it's about advocating into government, MB, on your behalf to fund new research infrastructures. So where there's a need, and it's a need greater than institutions can afford themselves, that is the role for REANNZ to work with you and work with government to be able to try and access that funding at some point. If we do that right, we're going to enable equity, access and equity, flexibility, you're going to have a pick and mix of solutions to choose, collaboration, integration, but also growth and impact for New Zealand Inc., because our remit goes across into the commercial sector, so we can support commercial startups. So when you're working with partners or outside the public research organisation and university remit, we can extend out there with you as well, so we can have quite a broad reach. So we're not going to deliver that all in a year, I'm afraid. It's a 5-year plan. Between now and the end of June, it's just getting the teams together, stabilising everyone, building our roadmaps, getting everyone on the same platforms internally. So we have been internally focused, but I'm not apologising for that, because it's about getting the team stable first and foremost so that they can better support you. Years 1 to 3 is about scaling and growing, so recognising our new mandate is nationwide, so working out how we're going to do that. And years 3 to 5 is really actively leaning into the innovation area, but we will start delivering some innovations ahead of that time. So that's sort of a bit of a so what, right? This is me talking about what we will do, and it's like, well, hurry up and do it, or do something. So I thought what I'd do is walk you through what you're going to see from us in the next 3 to 6 months. We do have some things that we are working on quite actively, and this is an opportunity just to give you a heads up on what is coming. The first is we're expanding our HPC offering. Mahuika is fully loaded, we're investing in it, but there's still a lot of pressure and stress on the capability. So we've been working really closely with Earth Science. For those of you who don't know, they have a supercomputer they call Cascade. At the moment it is only CPUs, it does not have GPUs, but they will be coming on stream over the next 3 to 6 months. We've agreed everything, we're just going through the final pricing and paperwork that always takes much longer than you expect. But if you have an immediate need for Cascade, please let us know, because we can do some workarounds in the back end and get you on there sooner rather than later. In addition, we're talking to Pawsey in Perth and making their capability available as well. Same thing, we're all in the mechanics of contracts and pricing and what have you, but there is a manual agreement, so if you do need to use that capability, please reach out to us and we can support you. And those two services there are really making leverage of the power of both the networks, but the global federated identity management capability that REANNZ runs. And then you may or may not have seen before Christmas, end of November, we issued a RFI to the New Zealand market looking at setting up a bank of GPUs at scale. For the sector, and that came really clearly from members. It wasn't our idea actually, it came from the membership saying we have a need for GPUs. We will always own our own GPUs, absolutely, but we need access to GPUs at a scale that we cannot afford. And that's where REANNZ comes in, to combine that demand, get a view of the market, and then work out with officials and the members how we're going to actually fund this over time. The RFI has closed and proposals are just being assessed, so we'll look to have some more information probably March, April as we work through that. But what I will say is we were really, really pleased with the scale of responses from the sector. We have sovereign, non-sovereign responses, we have ones that will flex, and we have some very sharp price points in there. So we are comfortable that there is a solution that is feasible. So we'll be working through and share more information with you when we're able. We're also, and Simon touched on this in his opening, we're working really closely with the New Zealand Institute of Advanced Tech. They fund, we come behind them and we provide the infrastructure. We are beginning to engage with the initial funded AI research programs, because our job is to make sure that if you get the money from 1 July, the infrastructure is there to support you. So please, again, Wallace and the team will be talking here all week, talking to you about what you need. Please let us know, and we'll pull that into our planning. We will be releasing a technology roadmap May, June, and that'll give you some more clarity. Pricing and access model I've touched on. And we will be establishing a science advisory group to help inform our direction, our strategic direction over time. If you are interested in any or all of this, either come and speak to me, one of the team, or if you email engagement@REANNZ, we will get you on some of our distribution lists so you can get updates about how this is all progressing. And that's 20 minutes, so I am done. Sorry, it's a bit of a quick run through, but I hope that makes sense. And has anyone got any, do we have time for questions? We may not.
Any questions from the floor?
Good.
Time for the juices to flow. There we go, Geordie.
So, question for you is, are you targeting still academic environment, or are you also targeting industry?
Predominantly academic, but we have under our constitution, we have an obligation to support what's termed the commercialisation pathway, which is between academic and industry. So where you are working with, like, I don't want to say a name because it implies a direction that's not there, but if you're working with a third-party commercial provider, we can absolutely bring them in. What we can't do is go and target some random commercial provider that doesn't have links to research. So it's got to be a strong link.
And another question is, when I hear this collaboration between OSI, MCI, and now REANNZ, I get very excited because it looks very similar to what in Europe we call BRAINS.
You call what?
BRAINS.
Don't know base.
It's a global organization inside Europe to share resources across multiple countries inside the
Yeah. So the model behind this and the platform that we're standing up is based on the Euro HPC, which might be similar.
Yeah, so this is it.
Yeah. So the Euro HPC is supported by the European eReANZ. So we're an eReANZ. So they do the federated identity layer, which we're working with them to bring that over here and stand it up. They also do the network. So we're leaning heavily on the IP that exists across the eReANZ, Géant, Surf, I don't know if the name's familiar to you, within Europe. So yeah, it's exactly that model. Because it works, right? And someone else has proven it. So we're like, well, let's stand it up here. We're not about, for these core things, it's not about reinventing the wheel. We reach into the global community and we bring it locally. Cool.
Well, well, I think you missed out before, so we'll let you.
I don't know where I'm looking.
Ask a question over here.
I was just curious if you could give us a bit behind the scene what's happening about how the integration between Nessie and REANNZ, what's the amount of work that's happening, some examples?
Yeah, it's been done in phases. So the teams have been in since 1 July, and we have kept everything the same for everybody, same officers, same management, same role. And that's really just to make sure we're delivering continuity of service. A lot of work going to bring people on the same Slack channel, Confluence channel, all of that work. We will be moving into operating model work over the coming 3 to 6 months. The team are aware of this. We'll also be standing up and developing a new REANNZ identity. So spoiler alert, there will be a new name. Don't know what it is yet, and that'll be June or July. So this is about acknowledging the legacy of the past that both organisations bring, but actually working to create a new organisation, a new legacy, and a new sort of culture, if you like, a combined culture off the back of it. So we've been really careful to clear that it's not about losing what's good about Nessie and REANNZ, it's about creating something new.
Awesome. Well, another round of applause for Amber. And so now we have Mick Black, who's going to, once he's mic'd up, will provide the update from Genomics Aotearoa 2.0.
Is it on? I got a thumbs up from tech support back there, so we're in business. Now I have to figure out how to work this. All right, let's go fast. Make up time. We don't want to be late for lunch. Just a quick reminder who Genomics Aotearoa are. We used to have this beautiful set of logos, and then the guys on the left-hand side all decided they wanted to have the same logo. Anyway, Genomics Aotearoa is a partnership of 10 down to, I don't know what that comes down to, less institutions with the merger of the CRIs into PROs. So these are the main players in there. You might remember from last year that I was very excited because we just had funding extension announced, and we've essentially spent the last year doing paperwork to be allowed to spend the money. So like Amber, we've kind of had the problem of there's been a lot of work going on in the background, and it's been a little bit difficult to see what's been happening with GA. But we've got funding through to mid-2030 at $5 million a year. We did manage to get expedited contract signing, the initial head contract between Otago and MBIE, to mean that we could keep our core operations going. So we kept our training going, we kept the Aotearoa Genomic Data Repository going. We're able to do some extension projects for our current postdocs, which was great, and we're able to continue to support the Rakiora and Hikakano Aotearoa operations. So that's great. We couldn't find any new projects though, because what we had to do is we had to get sign off on our work program, and we managed to achieve that in October 2025. What some of you didn't know last year was that I was getting up at this meeting at 5 o'clock every morning working on the work program to try and get it in. And then we had this amazing lag from March to October while we revised it and got it approved. So that's good news. I won't spend too much time on this, but if you're interested in what GA does, go to the website and have a look. A few things to highlight up there. We've run 38 projects over the 7 years of our first first phase of operations that involved 278 researchers. We trained over I've lost where the thing is over 2,000 or something now, researchers through our training program. There's all sorts of statistics in there. What we're all about is we're about building capability. We're about building infrastructure by doing research. So we do research, that develops infrastructure, and that infrastructure is made available for others to come along and use. Our GA 2.0 work program is, in terms of the focus, it's fairly similar to what we've been doing for the past 7 years. We still have a focus across primary production, environment, and health. We're continuing existing initiatives. So our Indigenous Genomics platform, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. As I said, we're still supporting Hikakano and Rakiora, still doing our trading, still doing AGDR. We had some directives from MBIE as a requirement of our funding, so we are now having to focus in on economic benefit across all of our projects. So we've got a really key focus on that, on delivering, undertaking projects that will deliver economic benefit. We also have to focus on biotechnology, so we'll have projects that are very much focused on biotechnology, and then basically we have to have a strategy that makes sure we're delivering on those things. So that's something that we've developed with our board and our advisory forum. Retaining the current structure, so we're still going to have a governance board. We'll be changing the composition of the board. Some of our board members have been there for a few years now and are looking for a change. We'll keep the co-directors structure we've got. We'll keep our management team in place. We've moved our science leadership team to a science advisory forum. We didn't make them a science advisory group for obvious reasons. Someone got it. We also have an international advisory panel looking at our science from an international perspective. These are all things that Peter and I and our core team are involved in, so strategy development, doing the interactions with the MBIE, coordinating project development with our partners, overseeing the research that's going on to make sure everything's on track and resourcing it properly if it needs it, if there's extra things that are needed there. Annual reports, so much fun. And then again, our centrally funded activities. Here's our core team. Peter and I are, again, remaining on as directors. MBIE has asked about succession planning. I'm not sure what that says about Peter and my leadership. We will be looking at bringing some deputy directors into the team. I'm really conscious that I do want to have a new generation of leaders coming through in genomics. which will be great because we've done such a good job of supporting our early career researchers in there. Just focusing on our team there, so Tracy's still in the Vision Mātauranga role, Jess is still in the finance role. We've got a new training coordinator, Chloe. Some of you would have met Chloe yesterday. I've lost where Chloe is in the audience. Wave Chloe, please. There she is. Chloe would love to talk to you if you missed seeing her at Carpentry Connect yesterday. Tanis isn't here. Tanis is our AGDR liaison, so working with the Aotearoa Genomic Data Repository team. And we've got a new appointment, our Research Horizons Manager, Lucy Schweitzer. We swiped her from Tenerife, so she's come across to GA and has found her feet amazingly and is doing a great job on the strategy side of things. She'll also be working with our project teams. I stole these slides from Tracy and I'm probably going to mess them up. So Tracy has led our Indigenous genomics platform. We had 7 Māori-led projects within our first round of funding in GA. So this is only covering the last 2.5 years or so of GA. Lots of environment-focused projects, conservation-focused projects. Some of those have commercial potential, which is good for rolling into our second phase of operations. And importantly, each of those projects was community-led and it was underpinned by cultural knowledge, and we'll certainly be looking to continue that in our GA 2.0 operations. Tracy's already got the IGP 2.0 well underway, so we are talking with iwi and communities that we've had partnerships with in GA1, looking to expand those relationships and put together some bigger projects, some sort of multi-component projects. With those groups. Really proud of the slide, not just because I made it quite early this morning. These are all of the postdocs and early career researchers that GA supported, at least in part. Not everyone was working full-time on these projects, but these guys are all supported by GA and GA 1.0 and have gone on to do wonderful things. Except for these guys who are still with us, not that they're not doing wonderful things. What we were allowed to do was we were allowed to extend some of the funding. So we couldn't start new projects, but we could say, hey, these guys are doing great work. Are there things that we can extend out on those existing projects to keep you engaged with GA and keep you getting paid? So Ben, Nat, Joseph and Reese are still working on those GA projects that they were working on in GA 1.0. And if you have a star next to your name, so Ben, Joseph and Reese, they are here and they are presenting and they are all, because I'm on the program committee, they are all in the same talk slot, so talks 5 and 8 tomorrow between 11 a.m. and 12:30. If you'd like to hear what's going on with those GA projects, do go along and have a listen. Right, we're still doing AGDR. I'm not going to say too much about AGDR because we've got a talk tomorrow about it, but we've been continuing the work there. There's lots of exciting things happening. There's lots of new data going into AGDR, and there's some innovations that we'll talk about in tomorrow's talk. Who've continued to support Hikakano. This is the sequencing project where researchers have been characterising the genetic variations in genomes of individuals with Māori ancestry and using that now, and this is really exciting, using that in the clinical decision-making space. So when genetic testing is being done on individuals of Māori ancestry, the information in Hikakano is being used to help with the decisions are made about the results of those genetic tests, making sure that those genetic tests are being interpreted in the right way, using the genotype frequencies that are relevant to Māori populations. So that's a really important step forward for Māori healthcare. Just want to acknowledge Ngāti Porou Oranga, who played a really vital role in this project, both in the leadership and the recruitment, and hosted an amazing launch event back in November 2025. So thank you for that. Don't forget about Ben's talk at 12:10 tomorrow. He'll be talking about the very end. Rakiora, another amazing collaboration between GA and NESI, this one. And for those who don't know, Rakiora is a tikanga-led co-design platform for genomic medicine research. If you look carefully at the list of names on there, you will see that it is a really good contingent of our eResearch community. So this is a really good example of the community coming together and doing an amazing project. That paper was published last year. The Global Alliance for Genomics and Health, which were implemented, so some of the protocols were implemented as part of the Rakiora project for data sharing and security. They featured a really nice write-up last week on their website, so you can go and read that. And so Genomics Aotearoa is now a member of the GA for GH National Initiatives Forum, which gives us a kind of a voice at the table for those large-scale, international, national-scale initiatives in the genomic medicine space. And Helen, Claire and Chris will be talking about it in Talks 14 at 11 a.m. on Thursday. It's good, I'm shilling for GA the whole time. Training. So if you missed Carpentry Connect yesterday, you missed hearing Chloe talking about our training. We've been able to continue our training activities through 2025 and into 2026. Now in total we've run 127 workshops since we started back in June 2019, over 2,300 attendees. I've just had to start saying about because I can never get the right number. There were 20 workshops in 2025, which is amazing, and there's over 300 attendees. So training did not miss a beat, despite the fact that we lost Tyler. So Tyler took a position at University of Luxembourg as a training position there, and is doing wonderfully, but we're really lucky to have Chloe Vanderberg come in as our new training coordinator. So Chloe's got a great background, postdoc at QUT and Otago, is a certified carpentries instructor, and has just stepped into the role amazingly, and has run lots of workshops, made lots of new content, so we're thrilled to have her. So, in summary, I did that quite fast, that was good, eh? Yeah. So things are happening, even though from the outside it hasn't maybe looked like much is going on. There's been an awful lot going on, particularly with the work that's had to be done to get that work program approved, so that we can get back to having the discussions about projects and getting some of those projects funded. So we've got project development underway now for primary production and health. We've got our focus group meetings. Actually, I got an email last night. I was very excited. The primary production project is in my inbox, and now I have to read it. Health won't be too far away, and then we're going to start our focus groups and our project prioritisations for environment not too far off. And Tracy is leading discussions with Mana Whenua partners about the Indigenous Genomics platform stuff. Core team's in place, our training's going, AGDR is just growing crazily, and we're talking with REANNZ and University of Auckland about making sure our ongoing support for HPC is there, and our virtual training environments, and hosting of AGDR. And I think that's it. Thank you. Whoa. Oh, no questions. I missed that.
No, you got it. You don't get away with no questions.
Should we sneak off and do no questions, and so we can save some time, and then you can come and harangue me at lunch?
Questions for Mick? Any questions? We'll keep the window short, though. There we go, David.
So not really directed at Genomics and Aotearoa. Are we ever likely to see other such initiatives in New Zealand? I'm looking at Australians in HAS, Planet, People. You can go into Europe and see other sort of thematic activities. Will we ever get to see that in New Zealand, do you think?
When you say thematic activity, I mean, so we've got genomics, we've got RNA, we've got infectious.
So environment, Earth and environment.
Oh, okay.
Or humanities and social sciences as HAS,
I don't know that I can comment. If I can comment on genomics. So I think it depends on the what is the desire for funding those sorts of things from government, right? Because I know the state universities are at the moment. There's not a lot of spare money to throw around for digital. So if we saw an interest in those large scale initiatives centrally, then I think yes. So I've given you a very much a non-answer. It depends on funding at the moment. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to
Cut me
not
off.
leave the window too open.
No, don't.
Isaac's going to come up. Thank you, Mick. Isaac Hollis is Manager of Science Policy at MBIE, and going to bring us up to date on some of the eResearch activity, and probably a little bit broader than that in the science sector at the moment. Thanks, Mick.
Awesome.
All right. Can you hear me? Is this on? Yes. All right. Fantastic. Kia ora koutou, ko Isaac Tokaingua. Ngā mihi ki ngā REANNZ and Genomics NZ. Thank you very much for the invitation to talk. It really is a pleasure to be here. My name is Isaac Hollis. I'm the Manager of Science Policy at MBIE. MBIE does a lot of things. About half of MBIE immigration NZ. So we have people designing changes to the science system as well as approving visas. It's quite a diverse organisation. So I'm here, hopefully, to demystify a few things about the science reforms, a really large program that we've been undertaking for the last 2 years. It's dominated our part of MB, it's consumed our part of MB for the last 2 years. It's been a really big work program. It's created a lot of change in the sector. And one thing that I'm very conscious of is that Wellington is a little bit of a bubble. This summer it has been a rainy and windy bubble. And this is part of our effort to try to connect a little bit more with the sector. We want to hear a little bit more from you about what you're seeing on the ground. The eResearch digital infrastructure side of things is super important, and it's only getting more important, so I acknowledge that without being an expert in it at all. And so, yeah, very much welcome your questions at the end, comments and feedback. So I'm going to do 3 things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the background and rationale for the reforms. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. You're welcome to ask more about it if you want to go into a bit more detail. I'm going to provide an overview of what we were trying to achieve and what is planned and what we have already achieved, noting that we're kind of getting to the end of the 3-year government cycle with an election in November. And finally, I'll provide a bit of a comment on what those reforms mean for infrastructure, and then some thoughts on digital infrastructure, and very much welcome you coming to that discussion and then helping us to understand what you think those reforms and changes mean for you at the coalface. So it has been an incredibly large reform program. Oh, this is me, isn't it? It's been the largest reform program and I think change to the science system in 30 years. So we like to say that it's I hope it's a once in a generation change. I wouldn't want to do this again in 5 years. It publicly kicked off in January last year, 2025, but obviously for the people working on it behind the scenes, it kicked off with a series of advisory groups, the Science System Advisory Group, chaired by Peter Gluckman. And then those reports started coming out publicly, and that's when you started to see some of the really big changes being announced. So we merged the CRIs down from 7 to 3 public research organisations. I know that's been a really huge change for the organisations involved. We've disestablished Callaghan, or are in the process of it. We are in the process of creating the new New Zealand Institute of Advanced Technology, which will be based in Auckland, which is really exciting. I'm from Auckland, not from Wellington originally. We've created the Prime Minister's Science, Innovation and Technology Advisory Council, which provides that strategy-led approach to the science system, and I'll explain a little bit more about how that system fits together. We've just recently announced the creation of Research Funding NZ, which will be the single funding decision maker, as well as a couple of other changes like creating Invest NZ to attract international investment, and creating a new intellectual property strategy and policy. So I'll get into the rationale. So on your left, that's probably the more relevant one for us. So this is showing the intensity of research funding in New Zealand, public R&D spend, and what you can see here is the green is international comparators and what they spend their money on, and the black lines are what New Zealand has traditionally spent its money on. And you can see that we're weighted more heavily towards agriculture, which in some ways makes sense. We are a primary industries focused economy, particularly our exports. And so the research spend has matched the current economy. The table on the right shows R&D spend and sector spend, so I think it's less relevant for us here, but also shows that we're heavily weighted towards certain sectors, not necessarily the high productivity sectors that you might expect. So this very dense graph tells a lot, but New Zealand is on the far left-hand side, and what that shows is that we spend a disproportionate amount of our R&D funding, public R&D funding, on certain sectors, particularly agriculture and environmental funding. So obviously some of that is incredibly positive, and of course it makes sense that if you have an agricultural or primary industries-based economy, you're going to see a disproportionate amount spent, but the question is whether those are the right proportions given where you want to go in the economy, where the government wants to take the economy. And so in terms of the case for change, from our point of view, as I mentioned earlier, we had the Science System Advisory Group. that produced 2 reports. One was the problem definition and the other was the set of recommendations for how to change the system. The government took on board most of those changes, not all of them, and we're in the process of implementing those changes at the moment, and I ran through some of those earlier. And of course, Going for Growth is the government's central economic strategy, and that's where a lot of this comes together and is woven together in the New Zealand government sector. The other part of the case for change was that the system was quite complex. I'm not going to go through this. So the system was quite complex. It had a lot of actors. It had a lot of funding decision makers. And I don't think there's any suggestion that that wasn't working or delivering what it was expected to, but I think there was a general view expressed through those advisory group reports that we could be doing a better job, that we could be more strategy-led, and that we could be more unified, and that we could reduce the costs, particularly for the sector, of engaging with government and simplify the system. I'll show you in a few slides the proposed system, or the system we're working towards. So, this is the broad framework in which we're operating. So you can see here that this is a few months out of date, but essentially this is where you're starting to get a few key trends and movements. So we're moving towards a strategy-led science system. That's the kind of phrase that we use. And what that means is that the Prime Minister's Science, Innovation and Technology Council will provide advice. That's chaired by the Minister, Shane Reti, and it's convened by the Prime Minister. That will provide the government with advice on strategy and priority setting and integration into things like how to integrate industrial growth targets and sector growth targets into the R&D system. And so they're providing the top level strategic advice. We're going to have Research Funding NZ providing some of the funding decisions. And then, of course, I'm not going to talk about it today, but you have a commercialisation and innovation infrastructure here, which is really important too. The government has a really strong focus on economic growth and productivity, and getting research and technology having that economic impact is a real priority for this government. So let me show you the new system, which obviously looks sleek and easier to understand, but I think that's partially because we've dropped some of the things off the diagram. So I won't pretend to say that the government is suddenly streamlined and easy to understand. However, you can see here that there is a clearer chain from the top. So strategy-led, informed by the Prime Minister's Science, Innovation and Technology Advisory Council, through to the Minister of Science, Innovation and Technology, Research Funding NZ, and I'll go into a little bit more detail about them in a minute, play a really key role. So we've consolidated funding mechanisms down into a smaller number. MB obviously sits at all of these levels supporting these organisations, and so we've had quite a change in how we have to operate, because now we are both advising the Minister, but we're also advising the Prime Minister's Advisory Council, and we're advising RFNZ. And so we also are adjusting to this new reality, because we have a lot of new organisations that we advise and support. And of course, we have consolidated the public research organisations, the Crown Research Institutes, into a smaller number, and you can see the 4 up there. And so this essentially just summarises where we're getting to with the strategy-led science system. At the top, you're going to have a 10-year science investment plan, the SIP, as we affectionately call it. You are going to then break that down into 4 pillars, and you'll have a pillar investment plan. We think that these will be around 3 to 5 years, but with the ability to keep updating them. And then at the bottom, obviously, we have the actual sector, and there's going to be quite a bit more work once we've done the reforms, thinking about things like infrastructure and workforce and systemic sector issues like that. And so you're going to get a couple of these products coming out over the next 6 to 12 months. The Science Investment Plan will come first, and then Research Funding NZ will advise the Minister on the pillar investment plans, which will be how you spend the money essentially in 4 domains. And those 4 domains are these ones. So essentially the new system has these verticals, these are the pillars. These are thematic. These aren't the exact names, by the way, but those will be published at some stage in the future, and you'll see a lot more detail around how those work and what is included in each of those. But more or less broadly, they will be these four, and then you have the horizontal components, and you can see things like infrastructure, where we see that as both. There's going to be specific infrastructure for advanced technology, for example, but infrastructure is also going to be important and connecting all of those. And I think REANNZ is a really, really fantastic example of that. So, Research Funding NZ will be a really critical part of this mix. And to be really honest, you know, they are a completely new body. So we are going to be learning how to work with them, how to support them. So MB will be the secretariat for Research Funding NZ. There is not a large organisation around RFNZ. If you're familiar with, say, the UK model, you've got UKRI. They are an organisation. They have the ability to provide their own advice, reach their own, do their own research, commission their own advice. In this case, we've kept it quite slim. So MB will be supporting them, but they will have independence. So you can see the members are on the right, chaired by Dr. Emma Blott. And yeah, this will merge a bunch of the funding decision makers that used to exist into one. And this will transition over time, so it's not like from 1 July, this is going to be the only funding decision maker. That will be a transition. So as I said, the really big thing that Research Funding NZ will do is to develop the detail on those pillar investment plans and be allocating resources between the different kinds of funding mechanisms that you could imagine, contestable, strategic, and on things like infrastructure. So, MB, when we offered to come and talk at the eResearch conference, we were told it's not always clear what MB does, and as someone who lives and breathes MB, I was like, what? How could you not know the ins and outs of this large, gargantuan ministry down in Wellington? So here I'm just talking about the science components, and of course we have a large, the science part of MB sits within the economic growth part of MB, which sits, we sit within the technology and innovation side of MB, which sits inside economic growth, and then obviously MB as a whole has a mandate to lift productivity and support the New Zealand economy. What MB does in the science system is to provide strategic and policy advice, and some of this is changing, so we have been the primary provider of strategic and policy advice for the system. Now you have new actors, so you have the Prime Minister's Advisory Council, which is providing some of that strategic advice, and we are providing advice to that council. So you see some changes in the reform, so we're also going through change. We have typically administered a lot of the funds, and while the decision making has been outsourced, we have managed a lot of the contracts and things like that. And so some of that will be changing, the decision making will be changing to Research Funding NZ, for example, and then MB will be supporting RFNZ by implementing RFNZ's decisions. And of course, a role that not everyone appreciates necessarily is that we monitor the public research organisations. So obviously we've gone down from 7 down to 3, so we're now achieving some scale with our research institutes, which I think is a really positive thing and opens some opportunities. And monitoring those large organisations is a fairly large job, like you would have with any Crown entity. So, what does this mean for infrastructure? There's not a huge amount that we can say yet about the role of research infrastructure within the reforms. The process has been on getting the top level organisations set up and getting that strategy-led process set up. But we know that the universities and PROs are collaborating and that they have 2 particular priorities. So one is workforce and one is infrastructure. And so we're leaning in to support them on that. MB funds a lot of research infrastructure, but we're actually not the main funder of research infrastructure. Most infrastructure is actually funded from within the balance sheets of these organisations. Universities are large institutions with large balance sheets. PROs are now large organisations with large balance sheets, and while everybody has funding constraints, this is one area where MB is not the holder of most of the funding. So we're working alongside other organisations to change this. And I would acknowledge as well that funding is only part of the story. So one thing that we are looking at and working with universities and PROs on is things like access, governance, training, making sure that we have the right workforce, the people in this room, for example, who understand and can work at and train the next generation of digital infrastructure operators. So we recognise that that is part of it, and so that's something we're working on as well. That's all I've got. In terms of some final thoughts on the relevance for eResearch, I think as a general rule, you can see that the science reforms are heading in the direction of greater coordination across the sector, greater scale, and that scale then allows you, like Amber was saying with REANNZ, to make certain choices and investment decisions by collecting demand. And I think that's really positive. We want to leverage international networks better, and I welcome your thoughts on how we might be able to do that. The government has a very strong productivity and economic growth focus, and so integrating industry participation into what we're doing is really, really important, and that's a strong expectation on us from ministers. And we also know that demand for compute will rapidly increase, and it won't just be in any one of the pillars, it will be across all of those thematic pillars. And so we're just recently talking to Amber down in Wellington about this as well, and we know that this is going to be really important, and access to GPUs and compute will be important. So I'll finish there. Thank you very much for your attention, and welcome questions.